Hello and welcome back to another episode of Football Heritage, here with your host, Stephen Clark. So today, guys, we're going to be talking about the 22 best under 22 players in the Premier League, if that makes sense. So the 22 best players under the age of 22. So this is kind of a tradition in Australian football where every season they sort of reward the 22 best players under the age of 22 and kind of put them into like a sort of inaugural representative team. I wanted to look at it from a football point of view and just kind of say who are the 22 most likely players to have an impact on the Premier League this season, because we do see a lot of talent get chances throughout the season, but to different levels of impact, especially when you're talking about like kind of the players at the top clubs. They tend to have less time, but when they do have time, they tend to impact the game a lot more because of the fact that they're just playing for a better team. So I've tried to diversify the players across across the Premier League. So I'm not just choosing the big six players. Obviously, they're likely to heavily feature in this list. But I think there's a few kind of outside shouts here, and I've used some sort of tactical analysis that I've kind of been working on for the last few days to kind of break things down and explain why I've made the choices that I have. So without any further ado, guys, let's get into the list. So at number 22, I have Japhet Tanganga. So this is a player who might not have even made the list if it wasn't for his performance on the weekend, purely just because of the fact that I didn't exactly see him breaking through this season. But with his performance, he's kind of solidified himself in my mind, and obviously in the mind of a more important person, which is of course Nuno Espirito Santos, the Tottenham manager. So with Tanganga, he's always looked physically impressive, and when he got those games under Jose Mourinho, he didn't miss a beat physically. It was always sort of the more technical aspects of his game that people were questioning. Is he truly a Premier League footballer? I think the determination at the end of last season might have been, maybe he just needs a loan, needs to kind of get a full season under his belt. But Nuno's thrown him in the first game, and to be honest, that's the best I've seen him play. So really excited to see what else he can offer. With Tanganga, just a few stats here for you. So he's gets 2.57 wins 2.57 aerial duels per 90. So that's in the top 97% for right backs. So that's a really good stat for him. He's physically dominant. Gets 3.75 clearances a game. So completely imposing on that right hand side, shutting down things defensively. And he offers a little bit more going forward than you might suspect for kind of a big guy that his frame is sort of his most important physical feature. I guess he doesn't have the speed that you'd expect from sort of a modern fullback, but he does complete 1.39 dribbles a game and has an 83% passing accuracy. So those stats are nothing to write home about, but certainly they show that he is trending in the right direction with those statistics, and if he can improve that level of his game, I think Tottenham will have a serious right back on their hands. Moving on, I have the 19-year-old Armando Brozovic, who's just signed on loan for Southampton. Like I mentioned in my season preview, I think that he won't be the saviour that maybe a lot of fans would be hoping for from a Southampton point of view. I think that Stuart Armstrong might have more of an impact this season. But what I do see with Armando Brozovic is a guy who can, when he's given the chance, score sort of a goal here and there, and I think that if he is given a long game time sort of throughout the season, I think that he'll be able to score goals. His XG last season for Vitesse was 0.58 per 90, so scoring every other game. Obviously, it's a bit of a weaker league, but if he can translate those sort of numbers, 10 goals and 2 assists last season, I think he's on a steady incline upwards. So interesting to see what he has to offer. Next, we have Aaron Connolly for Brighton. So this is a player that I've had an eye on for the last couple of seasons since he kind of made his first impacts at Brighton. And he's really interesting because he's sort of like a pressure forward. And I think that a lot of teams sort of would actually be keeping a close eye on him because I think he's a very modern striker in that way. Sort of reminds me of the way that Timo Werner plays, I guess, to a certain extent. He can be deployed across the front three if needed. So breaking down a few of his stats, 78.2 pass completion, from the front line, that's quite good. Gets a block in per 90 as well. So he's a kind of all action, and his XG is 0.4. So almost every second game he's getting a goal that he plays. So if he can get more game time under his belt this season, and that will be the crucial thing, how many games can he play? He's got a good record in front of goal. So interesting to see what he offers. Next up, we have Brian Ubaenbo, 22 years old. So this is a guy I'm really excited about, and I mentioned it in my season preview as well. I think that this guy for Brentford, and we've already seen it in the first week with Brentford's win against Arsenal, that Ubaenbo featured heavily and was a real force up front. He's another guy who's just a modern full forward. He's going to run, he's going to tackle for days, he's going to carry the ball possessively. So if we look at his stats, 8 goals and 10 assists in the championship last season. Excellent. 0.53 goals and assists per 90. So the guy is essentially impacting the team every second game with a goal or an assist. And if he can get anything like that in the Premier League, then Brentford will have a little star in their hands. Moving on now, we have Conor Gallagher. So the Chelsea loanee Conor Gallagher moving up to Crystal Palace. Had a really decent first season in the Premier League with West Brom last season. Unfortunately, they had to play quite a lot of defensive football for most of the season just to try to keep themselves up, which ultimately they failed in. But the one of the most important things about Gallagher is that sort of defensive pressures that he sort of picked up in his game last season. So yeah, last season he really learned a lot, and I think he will have benefited from that experience. And if we look at some of his stats from last season as well, 25.21 pressures per game, which puts him in the 96th percentile across the top 5 leagues in Europe. So this guy is one of the best pressure midfielders. And in addition to that, he also makes 2.24 blocks per game, which puts him in the top 90% as well. So this guy's an all-action kind of midfielder that can help out defensively, and he's still got a long way to go improving it in the front line. But as we've seen in the Chelsea Academy, he can score as well. So if he can get that all-rounded balance to his game, what a player they'll have there. Tariq Lamptey's next. Had a stalled first season after injury, but when he was on the pitch, looked incredible. 2.24 shot creating actions per 90. Incredible. 8.63 progressive carries. Wow. And 3.35 touches in the attacking opponent's box per 90. So just elite stats there from sort of a right wing back. And if he can get a full season, I have no doubt he'll be one of the premier right backs in the Premier League. Michael Olise came to Crystal Palace from Reading is next. And I've mentioned him a fair bit this season in the season preview, so I won't kind of babble on too long. But 7 goals, 11 assists, 0.59 goal and assist per 90. Excellent. He'll be an excellent addition. And if they can get him in the team with Zaha, I'm sure they'll create a lot of chances. Next up is Harvey Elliott. So 7 goals and 11 assists in the championship last season. Really impressed for a youngster, especially how young he is. One of the youngest on this list at 18 years old. And had a 0.59 goal and assist per 90 ratio. So even better than a goal every second game, which is excellent to see for a player that young. It is the championship, but being that young, you'd expect him to have a lot of time to improve. And the main thing for him will be getting in this Jurgen Klopp side. But if he can force his way in, I have no doubt that playing with better players, he'll have a great impact. Moving on next is Pedro Neto. So this is a guy who just is a stat king. I mean, like, you look at everything that he's done for Wolves so far in his short career. He just looks elite whenever he's on the field. So if he can really impress Bruno Lage and get himself in the team consistently, wow, he'll be excellent. I mean, 9.64 progressive carries per game, which puts him in the 95th percentile for players in Europe. So, he's carrying the ball almost better than any other player in Europe. 1.02 interceptions per game. So he's also got that dynamic kind of ability to run forward with the ball, but also have the energy still to make interceptions in the front line. Great. Oliver Skipp had a really promising debut for Tottenham. He had 44 starts in the Championship last season, which was a really great sort of booster to his career. He was a key part of Norwich's Championship title win. I think in Tottenham, he'll be kind of an underrated part of their small rebuild. So look out for Oliver Skipp. Next, we have Tino Livramento at Southampton. Made an awesome debut. He was Chelsea's Academy Player of the Year last season, which I think at this point says a lot because of the amount of great talent coming through there. Just watch out for Livramento. Don't really have much to say apart from the fact that this is his first season playing senior football, and it's been chosen to be in the Premier League at 18 years old. So Southampton have taken the bet on him, and you'll watch it. It'll pay off. Billy Gilmour next, obviously a Champions League winner with Chelsea. Played a bit part role last season for us, but is widely regarded as one of the best kind of deep lying playmakers around. He's got a great passing technique. He's excellent in the tackle. He's learned a lot of Kante in terms of the intercepting game. So just if he gets a full season under his belt, I'm certain that Norwich fans will have a lot to cheer about with him. Then we move on to Mark Guehi, who I've also talked about recently. Mark Guehi's excellent. He'll make a great centre-back in the Premier League, and regardless of where he ends up long-term, I think Crystal Palace have got themselves a bargain here. He was the best defender in the Championship last season. He'll make the step up effortlessly, which at 21 years old can't be underestimated. Then we move on to Emile Smith-Rowe. So the Arsenal young gun is highly touted by a lot of people. Looking at his stats, I think he's still got a long way to go in terms of being this all-rounded central attacking midfielder. But he is in the 99th percentile for completed passes with 87.8 per 90. So that's just an excellent start for him. He's a great passer of the ball, and if he can add goal threat into his game even more, he'll be a top player. Curtis Jones is next, and this is a player who, when I was looking at his stats, just impressed me. I think Liverpool fans maybe haven't hyped this guy up enough based on what I'm seeing here. But 0.23 assists per 90, 2.61 shots, shot creating actions per 90, 69 passes per game with a 91% completion rate, and probably one of the best stats of all, 8.7 progressive carries per game, and 5.6 progressive passes. So this guy can run with the ball, he can pass with the ball, he can create shots. He's just got everything for a midfielder. So yeah, keen to see what he can do with a full season under his belt. Looks like Klopp will give him the freedom. Then we've got Bukayo Saka. Of course, missed the penalty in England's game, but don't let that fool you. He's a star, and he will be a star. 5 touches in the attacking box per 90, 0.99 clearances per game. So got a lot of good defensive stats from the time he spent at left wing back, but only expect him to get better and better. If he can manage himself well in a struggling Arsenal side, I think he can be one of their star players. Okay, moving now into the top 5, we have Callum Hudson-Odoi with 12.24 progressive carries per game, which is just an astounding stat. It is the 98th percentile in all of Europe's top 5 leagues. Obviously, you have to consider those numbers because he's played less games, so less of a sort of full-rounded picture there. But whenever he does get a chance at all, he always delivers to the highest extent. And I think that the biggest challenge for him will be getting into Tuchel's system, because there isn't really natural position for a true winger like Callum Hudson-Odoi. But if he can utilize one of the wing-back roles, I think he could have a massive season. Then we move on to Mason Greenwood here in 4th position. At the age of 19, Greenwood is just becoming an absolute ultimate player already. 0.44 goals and assists per 90 for a young striker is just excellent. I think with a full season behind his belt, those numbers are going to get even better. We saw him score an absolute banger on the weekend already. So, yeah, I mean, I don't really need to say much about watch out for Mason Greenwood. But just one last stat on him, 2.86 shots per 90. So he's taking on the chances. He's not afraid to get a shot away. I think for a youngster, with the accuracy that he's had on goal already in his short career, expect a lot of goals this season and for many seasons to come. In 3rd place, I have Chelsea's very own Reece James at 21 years old. Unbelievable that he's still that young. He gets 2.87 tackles per game, 1.61 interceptions, 2.34 blocks. So an ultimately strong defensive player, and people still think that is an area where he can improve. So if he can improve when he's already hitting in the 90th percentile for a lot of those stats, he's going to be an absolute beast by the time he reaches full maturity and peak of his career. And obviously as well, we all know that he's just as good going forward as he is defensively, if not better. 6.49 progressive carries per game. So, he's affecting the game completely and utterly from that right-hand side. And he's so dangerous for Chelsea. He's such an important player. And you'd hope with the performance he put in the Champions League final, he can take his game to new levels. So Phil Foden is in second position here. Phil Foden is obviously, he's already like a 3-time Premier League winner, I think. So unbelievable that he's still this young at 21 years old. A massive star for City and England for many years to come. 7.25 attacking touches in the opposition's box per game. So that's equal to like a Jack Grealish sort of thing. So he's doing really well for himself when he gets kind of in the attacking positions. He finds space and he's able to manipulate the ball inside the box under close conditions with opposition players. And excellent for him. Another stat is he's affecting the goal. He's affecting the scoreboard so well and so regularly for a player of that age. 0.53 goals and assists per 90. So that's excellent for a guy whose main attributes aren't actually even the goal scoring sort of side of things. So wow, what a player he could become. And at the number 1 spot, unsurprisingly, probably to some, I have chosen Jadon Sancho. An incredible player, one of the best young creators that the world of football has seen in the last 20 years. Yes, he applied his trade in the Bundesliga, and some might argue that is a bit weaker than the Premier League. I certainly don't expect him to be recreating these numbers, particularly straight off the get-go, but I don't think it'll take longer than a season for Jadon Sancho to be one of the ultimate stars in the Premier League. And at the age of 21, these are some stats. 0.51 assists per 90, which puts him in the 99th percentile. So borderline nobody else is making that kind of impact with assists per 90, and he's only 21 years old. Incredible. 10.59 progressive carries per game, 97th percentile. So, that's sort of just lower than Callum Hudson-Odoi, but he's getting the assists at an even higher regularity rate, and 3.87 dribbles completed per game in the 96th percentile. So this guy doesn't drop out of the 95th percentile for basically all of his attacking key stats. He's just going to be an incredible play for Manchester United. Awesome, guys. So that pretty much wraps up the video for today. What do you think? Did I miss anyone? Anyone that you would give a shout out to? Any maybe more unknown names? And what did you think of kind of my listing order for the season? There's a lot of factors that went into it. How much the games are actually going to play. Do you think I've made a mistake with any? Let me know in the comments, and we'll have a little chat about it. Great, guys. Thanks for tuning into Football Heritage, and I'll see you with another video tomorrow.